YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with some more NFL rankings. We got all kinds of ranking videos on the channel, more to come. Right now we're ranking units. So in this video, interior defensive line units for all 32 NFL teams. On the screen during the video, I'll have my projected starters, but we'll mention rotation players, and rotation players play a part, of course. Again, all kinds of these rankings, predictions on the channel, more to come. We have a new goal. We're trying to reach 10K followers on our Twitter, actually. Constant talk on the channel in the NFL. During the season is big, talking during every single NFL games. There's polls on awards every single week, so you're going to want to follow us there. We're kind of getting ready for the season. New features on Twitter. We're able to do bonus content at 10K followers, so we're trying to reach that. It'd be much appreciated if you check it out. Also, if you like, subscribe to our YouTube channel here. And then, yeah, here's the Twitter. There's a link down below. Constant NFL news coming out even in the offseason and a lot more. We got you covered. Defensive line units, interior defensive line units here. So the Cowboys, unfortunately, at the bottom here, they're going to most likely continue to run their 4-3 defense featuring two interior defensive linemen, Tristan Hill, who's been pretty underwhelming, and Neville Gallimore I like. I like the prospect a year ago at Oklahoma. He played more of a nose tackle role at Oklahoma. And the Cowboys kind of want to move him around a little bit, but he does feel like kind of a new school type nose tackle that can actually get pressure on the quarterback, but they kind of used him over the guard a little bit, maybe just inside. And they've added a couple other pieces. Watkins could be a rotation guy. Odighizuwa was a solid draft pick. He could probably find himself on the field pretty early. So they're getting there. It's just the interior is pretty rough, and it makes everyone else's job harder because I do like their linebacker unit. Texans next, Lovie Smith in town. They're moving to a 4-3, obviously, and then that'll feature two inside guys. They add Collins, Malik Collins, that is, and I think they added him to start him. And then Ross Blacklock, who was a TCU prospect from last year, so two in a row, a couple Big 12 prospects from a year ago. I think they'll roll with Blacklock. A little underwhelming the first year. I think he'll fit Lovie Smith's scheme a little better. TCU kind of ran almost up front, kind of an old school scheme. A lot of stunts. I think we'll see some similar things in Lovie Smith's scheme. Blacklock can move around a bit. He can even play nose, D-tackle, get after the quarterback. So I'm hoping they start him, get him going. And we'll see. I'm thinking of Menu who plays defensive end, but if he doesn't, then he'll slide in and he'll probably start in the interior spot. So we'll see what the new staff has in store. The Browns, I think the Browns will miss Sheldon Richardson. They do get Andrew Billings back, who opted out last year. They signed last offseason, but again, he didn't play because of opt-out. He's a solid nose tackle. Stops the run on early downs. He's just not going to be involved in getting after the quarterback, but they kind of need a guy that can stop the run. Malik Jackson, interior guy that could get after the quarterback. It's been a bit since we've seen him play at a high level. I think injuries and declining a little bit played a part. Hopefully a guy like Jordan Elliott can step up. That'll be big time. Because they are on the weaker side. Again, Billings stopped the run at a pretty solid level. Bengals, interesting because Billings used to play for the Bengals. Ogunjobi used to play for the Browns. A year apart though, switching teams. But I thought that was interesting. But the Bengals, yeah, they got a big time run stop. I mean, they upgraded their run stopper last year when going from Billings to DJ Reader. That's their nose tackle, a guy that's getting better. But yeah, he's gonna stop the run at a high level. We'll see how much productivity he has getting after the quarterback. Ogunjobi, which I think the Browns, felt like Ogunjobi and Sheldon Richardson were almost the same style of defensive tackle, and they were using both of them because those were their best defensive tackles. So maybe he was a little bit, maybe he wasn't used the right way because he was playing at the same time as somebody that he's a similar style to. So maybe playing with Reader maybe suits him a little better. So he actually could be a little better here. Even though he's not playing with Myles Garrett, Sheldon Richardson anymore. We'll see. I guess that's debatable. But it's not for a 29th ranked, it's not terrible. I think some teams are sitting in a pretty good spot here. Raiders, Jonathan Hankins, who mainly plays the nose tackle for them, and Quentin Jefferson. Jefferson was a little disappointing with the Bills, but 2 years ago at Seattle Seahawks, I loved that season he had 2 years ago. They used him at nose, they used him at D-tackle, they used him at D-end, and he was extremely productive. Seemed like a disruptor type of player. So I'm excited to see what the Raiders got in store for Quentin Jefferson. They also have Solomon Thomas, who can play inside or defensive end position. So we'll see what they do with him. Maybe he starts. Who knows? I do prefer him inside a little more than outside. But I like Jefferson, though. I hope it works out here. Didn't really work out with the Bills too much. I don't know if they used him correctly or used him enough, but we'll see. Seahawks, Poona Ford had a fantastic season last year, a guy that can play a nose tackle or a defensive tackle spot, and they have Al Woods in there as well. I think losing out on Jaron Reed was pretty tough. I was surprised by that they let him go, actually, because he did want more money. They just couldn't give it to him, I suppose. I thought that was a solid player for them on the inside. But Poona Ford's getting better. That's kind of the big name there. Nothing wild about this defensive line here. The Packers are next. Packers have been, definitely on the weaker side. I think it could be better this year. Kenny Clark's a stud on the inside, obviously. I love Kenny Clark's game. Dean Lowry, it's been okay. But for the most part, it's been Lancaster at opposite of Lowry on the defensive line. But Kingsley Keke is kind of stepped up. A young player has stepped up a little bit. Had some moments last year, so I think he'll step up in the and he kind of did last year. He ended up getting the snaps last year to be within the top 3 of their defensive line. But it does still feel like Kenny Clark is carrying things over there. Jags next, still kind of up in the air exactly what scheme they'll run. A lot of versatile players, so possibly a multiple scheme. They had Roy Robertson Harris coming from the Bears. It sounded like a lot of teams really, surprisingly, I shouldn't say surprisingly, he's a solid player, but a lot of teams were after him. He ended up getting a little more money than we expected. Then Malcolm Brown they got from the Saints to play the nose tackle, and Jihad Ward can play the end opposite of Roy Robertson Harris if they kind of look like a 3-4 there. Roy Robertson Harris is pretty solid, but he was almost like a rotation piece for the Bears. I think it's a pretty balanced group. There's nothing wow about it. It's a pretty balanced group. Maybe a guy like Tavin Bryan can finally step up. They got a couple other guys in there, so it's a pretty balanced group. Doesn't really feel like there's a major hole. It's just, do they have that standout guy? At the end of the day, they did get better there, in my opinion. Next group, the Saints. Onyemata, love his game. Fantastic run stopper, important to the Saints. And I'm thinking Shai Tuttle could be the other starter next to Onyemata there. They lost Malcolm Brown and they lost Sheldon Rankins. Rankins probably being the bigger one. So that is tough. Shai Tuttle, not a big name in there, but seems like whatever's next man up, the Saints kind of develop him properly. They do a good job at that, especially with the interior defensive line. So, it's not really out there if you think, if it is Tuttle, is going to be better than expected, possibly. But it does, losing 2 guys that got significant reps with David Onyemata, it's tough losing those 2 guys there. The Lions got a young group, and it could look, see what they do with Deshaun Hand as well. I do like him, but it's a young group that could be pretty solid right off the bat. I like adding Michael Brocker, solid piece from the Rams. I guess the question with him, the storyline with him is, how will he be away from Aaron Donald? That's always a storyline when guys leave, it seems like. Lee McNeil, I loved his tape. I was a big fan of him as a new school type nose tackle. Used to play running back and linebacker in high school, and now he's a nose tackle and was a big play guy for NC State. Was doubled and tripled a lot because NC State had a stupid defense. Really just rushing 3 guys a lot of the time. And then they added Levi Onwuzurike from Washington, who opted out this last year, but he had a really solid season the previous year. He's got a crazy get off. So I think these young guys could actually make an instant impact. I'm excited about this one here. So we'll see. Chargers are next. Jerry Tillery. Big Goon is Linval Joseph. He'll forever be Big Goon to me. So solid nose tackle is probably declining a little bit. And then Justin Jones in there as well. Need Tillery to step up. He has the talent. He's just got to step up. Brandon Staley coming to town. I think that can help for sure. So I think a pretty balanced group, hoping Tillery can step up. The Dolphins should look more like a 4-3 this year. Christian Wilkins, a young stud there for sure. And they have Raekwon Davis. Wilkins kind of that key piece there. And they got a couple rotation pieces as well that are familiar with Flores' scheme there. The Panthers, Derek Brown, great young player there that's going to be solid, guy that can move around a bit as well. And they had Daquan Jones, who I think is actually a pretty solid nose tackle in there. They draft Davion Nixon. They had Morgan Fox, who's probably more of a defensive end, but can move around a bit. Gross Matos can move around a bit. So, and we know they got good pass rushers with Burns and Hassan Reddick, of course. So they're actually looking pretty strong up front. Kind of relying on Derek Brown's progression a little bit. He'll be there. He's going to be a solid player. Patriots, Lawrence Guy is of course is back, but 2 new faces in there starting, which I was stressing that they needed to improve that defensive line. Nobody really talked about that. That defensive line was definitely on the weaker side. They went out and did that. They had Devon Godchaux from the Dolphins, now to the Patriots, playing that nose tackle position, and Christian Barmore slipped to the second round. Patriots moved up. They had to have him, and that was a fantastic pick there. Guy that can move around a bit across the defensive line. So this group's coming together. It's coming together here. Pretty solid. We're seeing how there's a lot of solid defensive line groups, and that's fantastic. The Broncos next, Shelby Harris. Love his game. Guy that can move around a bit as well. Mike Purcell and Draymond Jones. And they also have a Geem, who was a solid draft pick from a year ago from Arkansas there. So pretty good rotation. Shelby Harris kind of the standout guy. Draymond Jones got to step up a little bit. So, yeah, it was unfortunate that Jarrell Casey didn't really work out because it could have been a lot better then, but it'll come in at 18. 17, maybe carried a little bit by J.J. Watt. They had J.J. Watt for that 3-4 end spot. A battle, actually. I can't battle for the nose tackle position between Fotu and Rashad Lawrence. That's going to be a pretty solid battle. Fotu ended up getting more reps last year, so we'll go with him for now. Jordan Phillips had a pretty damn good year 2 years ago on the Bills. That was kind of his only good year. I think playing with Watt, I think it's going to help. I think they pair together pretty well. Watt being D-end, Phillips D-tackle, and then the guy in the middle is obviously the nose tackle. So Watt does carry a little bit, but it can be a sneaky good group here. Next group of teams, units. Falcons could be sneaky good. We got Big Grady Jarrett, obviously a big-time defensive tackle. Tyler Davison, the nose tackle. And then Marlon Davidson, got a little confusing there, but Marlon Davidson, a couple years ago out of Auburn, can play that D-end spot. I like him. I like him in that role. I really like him in that role. If that's where they go, we don't even know for sure, but the new staff that they brought in, it kind of feels like a switch to a 3-4 defense. I would love that for Grady Jarrett's going to tear it up in any scheme. I would love that for Marlon Davidson. I think he'd be a hell of a ball player at that 3-4 end spot because he played a little bit of a 4-3 end role for Auburn and was productive, but did he have the athleticism and was he almost too big to continue playing an edge rush spot in the NFL? That was the big question, and they brought him into that Dan Quinn scheme last year. It just didn't really feel right. It feels a lot better with this coaching staff, this scheme, what I think it will be. We'll see if it is how it is. The Bills are mainly in the top 15 because I like their rotation. I think they're very, very deep. Ed Oliver's got to step up. I'm not really too worried about him kind of being underwhelming to some people so far because he played for Houston. He played out of position. So Bills are getting him right. He has the talent. He's drafted on his raw potential. So I'm not really worried about Ed Oliver. Remember, Star Lotulelei opted out last year, and now he's back. And he's a phenomenal talent as well. That's why he got the contract to the Bills a few years ago. So they got him back. They have Vernon Butler, who took a pay cut for them. And, they got Phillips. They got Zimmer. Justin Zimmer looked pretty solid last year. They're pretty deep. And then you throw in edge rushers like Russo and Basham, who possibly could play inside on certain downs, obvious passing downs maybe. There's no standout guy. I think Oliver can be that guy in the future. It's pretty damn deep, though. It's pretty damn deep. So we'll see who the starters will be. I would imagine Oliver is a sure thing to start. Washington, Jonathan Allen, Jerome Payne, and they have Matt Ioannidis, so they got the rotation going for them as well. Jonathan Allen's been maybe a little disappointing. I think probably fits a 3-4. Well, when I say disappointing, he's been a good player, so don't get me wrong there. But he was a top tier prospect. Probably fits a 3-4 end roll a little more, but he's kind of playing that 3 technique position, moving around a bit. But I think he'll be a solid player. Just needs to step up big time. Jerome Payne's a very solid young nose tackle. That's going to continue to get a lot better, and they have Ioannidis as well. With those pass rushers, these guys got to play better. I expected a little more last year. I'm not really worried about Jerome Payne. Jerome Payne's been fantastic, and he's very young still. The Jets next, Quinn Williams, I think is going to have a monster season. They're going to move him all over the place. Guy that can play nose, D-tackle, almost a D-end if you need him to. He's going to be a monster, absolute monster. Sheldon Rankins, very solid player. Just got to stay healthy here, but he is a very solid player. So that's a pretty good duo there. They got a couple rotation pieces as well. Moving on to the next group of guys. We got the Buccaneers, who's a damn good run-stopping defense. I think everything plays a part there. The inside linebackers being the best football helps there. Their edge rushers like Jason Pierre-Paul stop the run at a pretty high level as well. So it's not really just this group. It's a pretty solid group, though. Sue all of a sudden became underrated, in my opinion, and Vita Vea is a very solid nose tackle, stop the run at a high level, and William Golston they have as well. And then you go to the Titans, who really improved it. Jeffrey Simmons is getting better every step of the way. This was a top-tier prospect, just slid a little bit because of injury. Avery Jones will likely play the nose tackle position. They add Danico Autry, who will add some pass rush to the actual defensive line. I like the fit there, too. He was playing more like a 4-3 end role for the Colts, and he's pretty productive, but this feels like the proper fit for him. So Simmons and Autry are that big duo. Their D-tackle, nose tackle, D-end is how it'll roll. Bears, Akeem Hicks, stud of a defensive tackle. Eddie Goldman, their nose tackle. Let's see, hopefully he shows up. There's been some concern. I've heard rumors that he was thinking about retiring. I didn't really buy into that. Sounds like he's going to come back. Bilal Nichols would be the other side. They also have Mario Edwards Jr. So it's a pretty solid group there. Just got to be, let's say they got to be healthy, but Goldman was healthy. He was opted out. Hicks, on and off sometimes. Big difference in that defense when he's on versus off the field. And then you go over to the Vikings. I think their starters will be Dalvin Tomlinson and Michael Pierce. You see pictured, we have Sheldon Richardson, who played for the Vikings a couple years ago. They also added him. They run a 4-3, though. So 2 are going to start, but they're going to use 3 quite a bit. So having 3 starter-worthy guys definitely helps in a ranking system like this. They have the personnel to really run a 3-4, but I just don't think they're going to do it. But if they did do that, then all 3 of the guys would start. I mean, you look at Tomlinson and Pierce as starters. You look at consider just run defense, just stopping the run. They're probably at the top. So that really boosts them up. How much pass rush will they get from the interior? I think that's where Sheldon Richardson comes in. So it's a pretty damn solid group. Much, much improved for sure. Next group of guys here, units, 49ers, Arik Armstead, who at times is an edge rusher, at times slides in and plays inside. And then him with Kinlaw. Of course, Javon Kinlaw is going to be a stud. Another one of those guys where just a raw potential type of guy, and he already played at a pretty high level right away. So I'm looking forward to this one for a long time here. They're trying to replicate the Armstead Buckner here with Kinlaw. Kinlaw could be that. Speaking of Buckner, the Colts come in, DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart. Buckner's such a big-time player. Yeah, he kind of, that helps be in the top 10. Maybe he carries his group a little bit, but Grover Stewart's a solid nose tackle. He'll stop the run. You just won't see him getting after the quarterback a whole lot. But that's a solid duo there in their 4-3 defense. Rams so tough to rank because Aaron Donald carries his big time, but Aaron Donald might be the best defensive tackle in NFL history. He definitely is right now. I think Ashawn Robinson could step up. Another year kind of going from the Lions to the Rams, playing with Aaron Donald, kind of trying to fill in that role at the nose tackle, even though he can move around a bit. And they have Sebastian Joseph Day as well. So I think guys like Ashawn Robinson could step up a little bit. Losing Michael Brockers is tough, though. That's definitely tough, but Aaron Donald is the reason they're somewhat high up here. Ravens group, pretty interesting because it's an old group. It's an aging group, but they're just so damn good, especially stopping the run. But then Calais Campbell kind of has both to his game, gets after the quarterback as well. Brandon Williams, that wall inside, and then Derek Wolfe can do a bit of everything as well. So if a guy like Justin Matabuke steps up, that can help. Another one of those teams where it's like the next man up seems to be polished already because the Ravens are very good at developing those guys. So we'll see. But that's a pretty good 3-man front there to help stop the run, what the Ravens love to do, what they're always good at there in their 3-4 defense. The top teams, we got the Giants. We got the Giants next. They did lose Dalvin Tomlinson, but they add Danny Shelton. What I like here is they actually could play Dexter Lawrence at the nose tackle position because he has experience at nose and at D tackle. And they can play a guy like B.J. Hill at the D tackle position. So some flexibility, versatility there. I do like that. The main reason why they're ranked high, Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, these guys are studs. And, Leonard Williams gets after the quarterback high level, playing at 3-4 end. Dexter Lawrence, I loved him out of Clemson. This guy was already polished stopping the run. He was a wall. You're not getting past him. And he had moments throughout Clemson where, okay, this guy's got upside getting after the quarterback. And I think he's kind of going to break out in that category. So I think he could be a special player. So big-time players right there, Lawrence and Williams for the Giants. 3 is going to be the Eagles running their 4-3 defense or D tackle, Fletcher Cox. Obviously a stud of a defensive tackle, been a top-tier guy for a long time. And Javon Hargrave is a very solid nose tackle. They signed last year from the Steelers in there with them. So that's a damn good duo there. They got a really good, deep defensive line. I like, and they drafted a couple guys that I liked. They have Ridgeway as well. So that's a pretty good group right there. Chiefs coming in at number 2. at the moment with the Frank Clark situation, they're lacking on the edge defensive end position of their defensive line. But the interior, not worried about really at all. Honestly, starting the game on early downs, we could see Chris Jones, Jaron Reed, and Derek Nottie, or maybe Derek Nottie and Chris Jones there. Derek Nottie will play the nose tackle position, stop the run. But Chris Jones is one of the best in football, right? To me, it's a no question. It's Aaron Donald and Chris Jones, and they're both elite. And Jaron Reed's a very underrated defensive tackle. He gets after the quarterback. He stops the run. It seems like he shows up in big moments. And again, like I mentioned, they have Derek Nottie. So you have a guy like Kalen Saunders can step up too. It may be hard because of how good of players he has ahead of him. So that's a really good interior there. And it's great that they got guys that can get pressure, get after the quarterback, because their defensive ends are lacking right now. I would imagine they could add somebody there, but that's kind of besides this video, this point. Steelers going to come in at number 1. Two top-notch guys out there in Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt, and then you have a solid nose tackle, Tyson Alualu, who played very well for them last year, and they almost lost him this offseason. He's getting up there in age, but he seems to be playing better. I think he fits so well with the Steelers. It helps. He's got some studs around him, sure, but he's playing well for them. But yeah, Hayward, a top-tier guy, has always been. Equally stops the run and gets after the quarterback at equally a high level. Stephon Tuitt is a monster getting after the quarterback from that 3-4 defensive end spot. So I just love this group. It's another group where if Mike Tomlin gets his hands on one of these guys and develops them, they're going to be the next man up's going to be pretty damn solid. So obviously I like this group a lot. So it's what makes the Steelers defense, maybe the team as well. These guys, along with an edge rusher like T.J. Watt, the linebackers they have as well. So, Steelers coming at number 1. You guys can let me know your rankings, your thoughts in the comments. Be much appreciated, as well as smashing that like button, subscribing, turn notifications on, and make sure you follow that Twitter link in description and comments for that and other things that you may need. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.